Yeah, we'll go ahead and get back here. That way we can get through the material and get to lab time, so y'all can play around with these things and see what we're doing. So what we just looked at with the grid, that works. I mean, that's really nice, right? We have a lot of control over what we're doing. We can specify it explicitly, but there is kind of a slight issue with that, right? Some of our screens look like this. And some of our screens might look like this. Or some of them, a little space in between. More of a square thing on a tablet. And we have all different sizes and shapes of a screen, right? It's a little hard to set up what grid we want exactly for our website before we know what type of screen the user is going to view it on. So the next thing we're going to look at is the solution to that. And really what it is we do all of them. It's called media queries. So CSS Media Query. And I guess we'll just jump right into the example. Because all it is we'll specify how we want it to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll just use this one that's pulled up here. So what we have here, this will be what is already in this CSS file. We'll call that our kind of main, the default. That's what the fallback, what we're designing it to look like. But there might be other screen types and things that we need to account for. So I'm going to take all of these selectors that are here and hit Control-C to copy them. Then I'm going to come down a couple lines and I'm going to add something here. I'm going to put @media. I'm going to come back and put some stuff and then some curly braces. And inside of those curly braces, I'm going to repaste a copy of all of that. And since it's inside of curly braces, I'm going to indent that to make that a little bit easier to see. There it is. Let's highlight all of it and hit Tab. That way it's indented and I can tell that's inside of something. So there's the default up at the top, doesn't have any sort of selection. But then we can specify different types of media. So, for example, only screen, so still on a screen, and then in parentheses we can set up different sizes of the screen. So like max width of 820 pixels. So this is saying if anything smaller than 820 pixels, apply some different style rules. I'll change some colors here. Just a simple example to see it. So make that purple, make this yellow, and then the columns are probably off here. So I'm going to change these columns to something else. I'll just do, actually, I'll go back to the flex. I'm going to comment out the grid stuff and just say if it's, so you have that grid, if it's a nice big desktop size, but if it drops below 800 pixels or whatever I put there, then we'll switch over and use that flex layout that's there from earlier. So I'll do all these. And I changed some colors so that we could see it clearly. And comment out all the grid stuff. And then, yeah, then that's surrounded in curly braces so that it's all those style rules are separate. So they only apply if it's below 800 pixels. So why didn't that change?
What happens if you shrink it more? Make it kind of yeah. Take your window and just squish it and see if it fixes it.
Yeah, so that's as far as it goes. Is that more than 800 pixels?
I don't
know.
Depends on your computer, I guess, or your screen. I don't know. You got me. Did you saved your CSS?
I thought I did. Yeah, the button's not red. Did I put a typo there? Let me try this again. So, at media. Am I spelling that wrong?
No, that's
media.
right. That's correct.
Only screen and max with 820 pixels.
You didn't have an and before.
Oh. Wait, that's why.
And, okay, and.
So screen and that max width. So now you can see if it's below 800 pixels, it's using that flex one.
Okay, and then as you make your screen wider, we'll see where it changes.
Yeah.
And that'll do that dynamically as you make your window larger.
Yep.
So if you did that, go ahead and do that just because I'm curious.
So over here somewhere, it's all blue or blue and greens.
Okay, and there it's wide enough to do that.
And when we go down there, yeah, and then we can set max width and min width, and we can set up several different rules that way and specify what's going to happen in different situations.
And those things cascade, so you go from widest to narrowest.
Yes, you have to be careful with it. Another one, important one here, if I hit Control P for printing, eventually it'll load the preview. There's kind of this little preview of it, but it's a preview of what's going on right now. An important thing to note is background colors don't print. If you use the background color property, it automatically doesn't print. If I expand this out to the other setting, hit Control P, there's probably not much change here. Yeah, not a whole lot of change, but it tries to print a little bit differently, depending on what we're looking at. So that's another common media query is not just screens. We also probably want to do one for at media only print.
Right. And that's so that when somebody goes and prints the page.
Yeah.
Like I would do in my clinic for if a patient wanted, if we looked some stuff up, I said, well, let me print you that. And I hit the print the thing, it would come out without a lot of the extra garbage.
Yes. So yeah, because some of this stuff like, well, maybe for printing, we don't need it in columns, just print them in order. Whoops. Take out all this column stuff. Oh, I forgot to undo the flex thing. That's why I was expecting more of a change. Apparently that's still commented out. Let's scroll up here. This one. Inside that media query, I'll undo the flex and then reload that. There we go. Now we can see a different layout, not just the colors depending on the size. And you can adjust for desktop sizes, whether it's full size, medium size, do things differently for a phone or a tablet, which that's a big part of the homework this week. I believe it's this week. It might be next week. But set up the on that yoga site, set up a desktop version, which is what we've been working on, but make a phone and tablet version as well. and each one will show a little bit different.
And they give us the pixel amounts so that we don't have to know, because it's helpful to know about how many pixels wide most phones are. And
yes. And then now, if I come over here and hit Control P to print this, once the preview pulls up, see we get a slightly different version. Oh, it didn't give me the different version. Why did that not give me a different version? I don't usually put the word only. I just have that in my notes. Let me see if I need to take that off. Why is it still printing in columns? At media print. Reload that.
I know it's in the book somewhere. I remember seeing it, even in my.
Yeah, I usually just put at media print and leave off the only, but I've apparently got a typo in here somewhere that I am not seeing.
Oh, here we go.
Because, yeah, this relates a lot more to what we're going to do next week.
Well, I know in the book, it shows linking to a different style sheet entirely. At least in the
yeah. Print media. Yes, these do not have to be in the same style sheet.
Right. So, because at the top it links all the style sheets, and it tells you which one's which. Like it says screen and print.
Yeah, a lot of people like to put them in different ones.
Yeah.
I spelled that correctly. That's what I usually do. I don't see a typo here, but apparently I did get a typo somewhere. Oh, wait. That's right. I have to actually turn this off. Display block. That'll work. So I'll just switch to the block because it was still using that default rule. Now when I print, hopefully that's going to work. There it is. So now all the lines print right in order.
So the command was media print or media only print?
Media print.
No only.
No, no only. I don't think it causes an error. I have it in my notes from. So if I put only, in my notes it says only, but I usually just put at media print. Yeah, so it doesn't cause an error. Because you could set up some that are like at screen and some size and print or print and mix and match them because we have the and the or as well. So like for a screen of a certain size and printing and set up all the rules for that. So does that make sense? And that, again, you'll want to play around with that. And you just want to think about the different screen sizes. And another thing to do is remember there are emulators built in. Google Chrome has emulators built in by default. All the other ones you have to activate a plugin. It's not that big a deal. You just go to the plugins and select the emulator plugin. But if you go to the inspector in Google Chrome, the second button right here up at the top left, the second button over,
yeah, emulator button,
will let you choose different ones, and you can see sizes. Like let's see, Moto G4 is 360 by 460. So you can set the sizes that you want on a different device. iPhone 6, the 667, iPad. So all of these widths are well past that max that I had. Well, that one should be using the other one. 360 on width. I don't know why that's not changing. 360 width. 320 width. What did I have that rule set as? Max width 820. Should I do that min width? No, that would be max width. Wait, why is that not changing? So 820, and it gets bigger, it goes to the other one. So, oh, maybe that needs to back off a little. Maybe make max width of 220. Whoops, wrong button. If I go in there and pull up the emulator, well, it's still showing the bigger size. Usually that changes. So I'm not sure why that's not reading the smaller one here. Do I need to do a min width here? If I change that to min width, well, that made it change. It's at least 220. A max width, so do that up until 400 pixels. 280, maybe 220. Yeah, it's often better to go with the minimum width and just build it up from there. That's what I was using max width here because the textbook uses min width on everything. So I was going to try to make the max width work, but it's not wanting to cooperate for everything. It's generally better to set min widths. So if it's smaller than this, and then the next size if it's smaller than this, and then the next size if it's smaller than this. But I was trying to escape from what the book was doing, and it doesn't seem to want to cooperate with me. I'll go back to this. And yeah. But you can see the general idea there. You just set this at media, set it for a screen, and then a minimum or a maximum width. I'll go back to what I had. So when it's small, it's below that maximum width. So these rules set in, and we expand it to get the other rules. But sometimes we might want more, especially if we start changing, like for screen size, or especially in printing, we might want to do a couple other things. So this is kind of what we were going to get into Monday. We'll talk about it a little bit more there. But we have what's called pseudo class selectors, where we can say things about select things based off whether or not something's happening. And we use a little colon for that. Yeah, we're going to talk about these a lot more Monday, but I'm going to go to the print one. And do I have that in here? Is that in these notes in front of me? Yeah. So we can do things like before and after. So here where the print is, if I pull up the print preview, once the preview loads. There we go. We can see I turned off all those columns, so everything just kind of goes right in order. But when we set up the page, we put them in columns because those are different pieces of information. So maybe another good rule we could have is to set up page breaks. And we're going to talk about these a lot more on Monday. I just wanted to talk about them here with the print media query, at least kind of a preview on them. So we can set up a section tag and then hit a colon, which means a pseudo element, something about the section. So not just the element itself, but certain things related to it. For example, after. So we have some style rule that applies after every section tag or before every section tag, and we set those up with a colon. And we're going to talk about them on Monday at length. We'll see a whole bunch of them. But one of the things we can set up for after is the page break property. Did I spell that right? Page break, yeah. Okay, looks like I spelled it right. And we have two options on page break. We either have avoid or always. So to help separate those, I'm going to set that to always. So for the same reasons, columns, this data would be spread out amongst three columns, it's because it's three separate things. We could reorganize that into our print version by adding page breaks. Why didn't it add the page break? Maybe I did spell it wrong. I was expecting it to, or am I in the right section? At media print, yeah. Section after page. I was expecting it to change colors, but it didn't. Page break, avoid. So this is the one that should have no page breaks. It would say avoid. Maybe I need to do it before the sections. Nope, still says one sheet of paper. Let me try this. So instead of after, do it before, I'll put always. Nope. Maybe. I've put that in before, but usually we use the pseudo element to specify that. Like I had it in my notes, and then where the dash after was, nope, it's still not wanting to break the page. So I'm apparently typing something wrong and not seeing what I'm typing wrong. Nope, still just doing one page. So I'll just add that to the section tag. That'll work. With what we'll see next Monday, there's a better way to do page breaks. But if I print now, will it give me page breaks? Yeah, there we go. So you can always just type in this one. There's another thing that goes with selectors. We'll see that Monday. And I'll mess around and try to figure out what I'm printing out wrong here. Because there were some other things I was going to put with the after and before. But yeah, we'll look at that Monday. You can see we can split up how it prints on the page. Or yeah, the main reason I wanted that is to print links up. We'll see that on Monday, I guess. Don't necessarily need it today. It's not part of the homework this week. The stuff that is part of the homework this week, we will see today. Is what we saw today. So the flex and grid and setting up all the different alignments and the stuff from Monday, the setting up layouts with the floats and absolute and relative positioning and all that stuff. That's what's on the homework this week, along with the media queries. So that site that you've been working on, you will add a bunch of different things to a bunch of different versions of the site. So you'll have a phone version and a tablet version after this week's homework. And that will all be done with the media query stuff, where you'll just set app media and then probably set up the min width based off tablet or phone sizes. And then each one will look different. It's like the other homework assignments. The book will have it spelled out, saying what to do everywhere. And all that, and be very specific. So that's all this stuff. And I'm not quite sure what I was typing wrong there. So I'm just we still got plenty of time. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into this next section of notes and just start from where I have at the beginning there, so that I can avoid the typo. So I'm gonna create a new file to work with. Does anybody have any questions about that other stuff? The media queries or the flex and grid that we saw earlier? Okay, so if there's no questions, I'm going to create a new HTML and CSS to talk about pseudo class selectors. The media queries are straightforward. There's not really much to them. You just need something to define how the data you're presenting is being shown. Is it being shown on a tablet or a desktop screen? Are you printing it out? Is it for text only stuff or full graphics? There's a lot of different options for it, you will see. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is some different ways we have to select stuff. So what we've seen so far, selectors. As in the CSS selectors. So how can we select things? So we've seen the wildcard selector, that one where we just select all the elements on the page at once. Then we have by tag name. That's what we're doing a lot in that one we just finished, right? Selected the stuff based off whether it was in the main tag or a paragraph tag or, well, the section. I guess there was some stuff mentioned with the section tag. But after that, to get to specifically, we talked about the classes, selected by class. And it hasn't shown up in too many examples in class, but we did do some select by ID, right? We've seen that as well, where a class in our HTML, we do dot, whatever the class name is, and then I'll put all our style rules. Or with our ID, we use just the hashtag, whatever ID we gave it, and then fill out all our style rules. So that's the ones we've seen so far. But there are still more ways we can select things. I guess we can look at them through an example, unless I had something in the intro to the notes here. Oh, so I just, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and start another example, and we'll work through it. So starting a new HTML file, all that stuff we've seen many, many times. Actually, I already saw all of it today, right? the sort of things you could probably go ahead and save in a starter file. That way you don't have to type them every time and worry about making a typo. See what else we can put in here. Title. I'll call this selectors / title. And I think I'm going to go ahead and save this so that I can see this screen. Oh yeah, I named the last one with the wrong date. So I'm going to call this one Feb 10. Put the right date on it, but that's just an arbitrary name. The only thing that actually matters is that it's .html. The file names are only for the programmer's benefit. If we create a link to go to this file, we're probably going to hide that link behind some other words. The user is going to see something that describes what's on the other page and click on that, not necessarily the file name of the other page. Probably put all that regular stuff in. We're working in the English language. And then in the head, put in a metadata tag to say we're working with Unicode UTF-8. There's the viewport. We haven't really talked about that one. The book uses this a lot. It's kind of outdated. What's the one that goes here? Display. I have to look this back up. This is a little bit out of date. Our textbook really likes it. HTML viewport. I was hoping one of these results would have an example showing right there in the results that, oh, they're just talking about it. Name is viewport. Okay. I couldn't remember where it went. Name equals viewport. So about 5 years ago, this was a very, very important tag. That's why it is stressed so heavily in the textbook, because without this, your site would not work on Apple devices. But that is no longer the case. So it's not as important as it was 5 years ago. Apple kind of came around and got rid of that. But a metadata tag with the name set to be viewport. I guess if somebody has like a 5-year-old iPhone, that might still be an issue. We still have some of those around. But it's one of the last things before all the companies finally came in, adopted the full HTML standards is Apple devices, you had to specify this. So content, so the name is the viewport, the screen we're looking at, and then we'd have to say things like make the width of it device width. Make the site go the full width of the device. Or we can put zoom information in there, zoom in to double the size, zoom out to half the size, zoom out to 50%, zoom in to 200%, which would be 2.0 or 0.5 for those two numbers I just mentioned. But it's not as important as it was 5 years ago. It's just that it's still in the textbook, and I guess there's still a pretty good chance that somebody has a 5-year-old iPhone that they haven't updated. That's still that would still apply to and make a difference. But for the most part, if your stuff's been updated, if for users that have installed all the latest updates on whatever device they're using, that doesn't really do anything anymore. But the book does put it in all of your homework assignments, I believe. So here, Let's see, I'm going to put a new page with 2 sections and a paragraph in each. So in my notes, I've said a page with just 2 section tags and 1 paragraph in each section. So I'll set that up. Whoops. If I can spell section correctly. And I'm going to come back and do the selector. Because that's kind of what this is all about. So paragraph. Here's the first section with a link to Google. So in this first section, I'm going to add a link going somewhere. And it doesn't really matter where. I just want to see a link. I'm just going to go to google.com. That seems like a good generic place to link to, right? I'll make that bigger so you all can see what I'm writing on there. So just a paragraph, but I also included a link this time for something we're going to do in a few moments. And the other one, this is the other section. Just some regular random words here. So nothing too fancy on this page. I'll go ahead and open this up. Maybe. It seems to be taking a long time to open. There it is. So nothing too fancy. Section tag, a couple paragraphs and section tags, and this link that we have not, that has not been clicked yet. So it's still that just generic blue one. So now I'm going to make a CSS sheet to go with it. I'll go ahead and set the link here, and then we'll be done with this one. Relevance is style sheet. href equals, I'll call it select.css. So linking to a style sheet that we're getting ready to create. And I'm just going to call it select.css because that's, well, like that list. We're looking at selectors here. So in a new file, I'll just start with this one. I don't think I'm going to put anything in there, but something that'll start changing colors. I'll call this select.css. And now we need a way to select all this stuff, right? So we have some paragraphs, some P tags, A tags, section tags. That's kind of what we're going to style up. So I'll do something for a paragraph. Let's do a background color to make it noticeable. Orange, that's a color. Then we have a tag. Background color, I'll make that red. And then we have these 2 section tags. So nothing fancy there yet. Just throwing some background colors so we can see where the paragraph is and where the link area, what area is defined as the link, like where we can actually click at. Although that red is not a good color for that. Pink. Okay, yes, that doesn't hurt my eyes as bad as the red. It's not a great color combination, but just something so we can kind of see those areas. And like that list I put on the board, I'll stop the screen share so it's big enough to see, hopefully. With what we've seen so far, to select those section tags, we could just say section, and that would select all of them. Or we could define classes or IDs, but we haven't seen yet how to select it if we use the name attribute. So let's do that one. Let's give it each one a name attribute. So like name equals, I'll go with top and bottom. Name equals bottom. So nothing changing yet. And to select those, what we can do is we can select by attribute. Oh, I have that at the end of those notes. So to select by attributes, we put in a tag name, so sections, and then in square brackets, we can say what attribute we want to select by. So like name equals top. And I'll give this, just a background color. That's a quick way to refer to it. Blue, sky blue. The just regular blue is probably going to clash really hard with that orange. Well, maybe I do need blue. Did I not save something? Why is that not selecting? Or
Do you need quote marks around the top up in your CSS or no?
it shouldn't. Let me check this way. Yeah, I didn't know. I wasn't sure if we were going to get to this one, so I hadn't actually practiced it. That's probably what this warning's about. The key with is not recognized and is ignored. What? What did I put with? Oh, that's in that one. Yeah, so you notice when I put that in there, the thing that the textbook tells you to try to put in every single one, notice it tells us it's ignored. It doesn't really do anything anymore. They just haven't taken it out of the textbooks. But why is my section tag not being selected? Oh, that's why. It's completely behind the paragraph. Sorry. I probably should have realized that. I'll add some padding. Will that work? There we go. That way we can see the blue. Sorry, I didn't realize. I was expecting there to be space around the paragraph for some reason. You can see that gives us a way to select that section tag based off an attribute. And you asked about quote marks, Joe. So CSS is processed as a string. So anything we type in the CSS, when it goes through to be processed, the computer will add quote marks to it. So things that seem like they would have quote marks, we don't have to put them there because they will be added before it gets to the CPU. So typically in the CSS, we do not put quotation marks unless we ultimately want quotation marks nested inside some, because quote marks will be added. So we were able to refer to this name attribute, and we can refer to any attribute that way. So any of the attributes we put in there, any attribute we can access, we put square brackets, then whatever attribute it's going to be, the value for that particular attribute, and then add in style rules to select it that way. So like padding 1 EM, or, 7 pixels, and background color lime. Is that a bad color? How that works. So just another way to select things based off of those attributes, which that's how we get to the name attribute, which that will be very important when we get to forms next Wednesday, I believe. It might be week 6. Before long, we will be looking at forms where we have a bunch of input boxes and buttons and stuff. And in that case, a lot of times the only way we can tell the difference between different input boxes or buttons or check marks on the form is based off an attribute. So we have to do a lot of our form selection that way. And I don't think our textbook mentions that. So anytime you want to select by attribute, just throw in the square brackets. And this could be any of these other selectors. So you could put a class name or a tag name like I did here. Any of the selectors you have, then throw in square brackets and look for an attribute, something that has that particular attribute. And then another thing that kind of relates to this is our pseudo classes. And that's the things that are about other things. So like here, I put this link in here to refer to the pseudo classes, things about it, because there's a lot of things about this link, right? While it's being clicked, that's called active. So we can set up style rules, so like A:active. Do I need 2 colons? Nope, just 1. And that's like while it's being clicked. So maybe while it's being clicked, I'll change the background color to green. So when I reload that, so hovering over it doesn't do much, but then when I click it, I'm still holding down the button, it turns green, then afterwards goes to the thing. Whoops, which I apparently had a typo in, but that doesn't really matter. We're just looking at things about it. And you see when we go back to it, it's exactly like it was. What was the typo? I'll just do it this way. Go to google.com. Oh, not Gmail. Google.com. I don't know why I wanted to do all that stuff. Oh, I forgot the protocol. So if you're leaving your site entirely, we've seen that a few times. We can just, if we're on our site, we can just use the file name. But if we're leaving our site, we have to say what protocol to use to get there. And protocols always have some sort of name followed by a colon and 2 slashes. Now that link should go somewhere.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
On those kind of things, are there sites that have been set up so that if I try to do that within my site that it will blow up? Or am I just missing something else probably? Because I have a couple of places that I tried to set things up, and out of about the 10 or 12 of them I've got for my project, one of them gets part of it right, and one of it just says, sorry, I can't find it. And yet everything in my browser says, hey, I got the right site. Unless it's the case where it's not an HTTPS, I haven't thought of that.
Maybe if it's just HTTP, then that's a different protocol.
And S will screw it up. So maybe I try it without the S and see if it works.
Yeah, make sure that you copy the site exactly. So if you go to it.
I tried that, and okay, we'll try again.
Because like here on Ivy Learn, some stuff, like here's what the site for Ivy Learn looks like. So
Oh,
if I click go to Ivy Learn or put a link in that says go to Ivy Learn, that's a completely different name, right?
right.
So that's forwarding. So make sure you just copy that exactly. If you hit Alt D, as in dog,
Yeah.
That will highlight what's in the address bar in all the browsers, and just copy all
And
your
it
links
will
from
get
there.
all the, and it'll give you all the extra junk.
Yes.
Okay, I'll try that and see if that works, because I have
Yes.
I had a couple sites that I didn't know whether they'd restricted it or what I did wrong, but I said that's funny.
So it's possible that some places would restrict it. However, when outside sites link to your site, that improves your search results.
Well, that's what I thought. And these are people who want me to play with their stuff.
Yeah. So like when you put a link to their site in your web page and you post that, that will make them go up the Google search results. So that improves the Google. So most places want that to happen. They want you linking to it because
if I really get screwed up, I may get on a call with you and we'll look at it and see what I'm missing, because I've just found it weird. Of all the ones I've played with so far, I had two of them that one of them showed part of it, not the other part of it. And one of them said, sorry, I can't find it. And I've checked and said, well, this looks like it's the right blasted site, but I'll give it another shot. All right.
Yeah, make sure you copy it, because it's probably forwarding to another site. And then when you typed it in, it didn't automatically forward.
Well, that's possible too. I'll give it a shot. Thanks.
Okay. And yeah, so back to the pseudo classes, there's a lot of different things about that link, because there's where it's active, but maybe before it's even active, we could just hover over it. So like when we hover over that link, make font style italic. So when we hover over it, it switches to italic font. And when we click on it, it does something different. Or in the case of links, it could be a link we've already visited. How do we want to style that link if we visited it? Font size 1.7 EM. I'll make it a little bit bigger.
So does that qualify to a certain extent as a way of giving breadcrumbs?
It would help with that, yeah. Because you can do stuff if you've already been to the different sites, and it would relate to it.
That doesn't look any bigger. Oops.
Yeah, I don't know why that didn't change. Did I get a typo? Because that still looks like that generic blue, not the purple that we visited. Let me just change the color. If we visited it, make it yellow. That's probably not a good color for that. But
that's all right.
Oh, well, it did change it, so something went wrong with the size. Font size 2.3. Maybe it just wasn't bigger enough.
No.
Oh. Well, let me try it this way. 22 pixels.
How about points? Make it a 16 or an 18 point font. See if that helps.
Yeah, it looks like font size just isn't going to change anything. So sometimes properties don't work. So let's change something other than size. So let's say font weight, which is bold. And so most people are familiar with like Microsoft Word, right? We have a button that says bold. Mm-hmm. And they did that to simplify it. There are actually lots of bolds. We can go from 100 up to 900, just as putting numbers on those. And then we have bold, bolder, and boldest. So it gets kind of complicated. Did I spell visited wrong or something? Oh, Yeah, I'm not really seeing any changes here.
I remember doing that. I remember doing that for the homework.
Visited, color black. I'll change it black.
No, you did it. You did it right because some
Okay.
stuff worked.
Yeah, font, weight,
Just say bold, see what happens.
bold. Nope. So the size and weight aren't changing. I'm going to have to look into why, but I'll just change the color back to black. So if we've already visited it, instead of getting that purple, it's going to turn to black, which probably isn't something we'd want. Maybe green. Because we still want our links to stand out, right?
Right.
We want to be able to see what those are. And there are lots of different things we could have. For the next one, in this second section tag, I'm going to put my cursor here and hit Control D a few times to duplicate that. Because another thing, I'll just start making a list. So these all go the same way. We have pseudo class. So it's like things about it, like we just saw active or hover on a link while it's being clicked, while we're hovering above it, after we've already visited that site. Might as well throw that on there. So we have like active, checked, and then the one I was getting ready to look at is first child. We have first of type, first dash of dash type. So you could set up first of paragraph, first of type, and then your first paragraph on the page would have different style rules, or last of type. And that's the first and last. Focus is, we haven't really seen it yet. Like on a form, on an input box, the box where the cursor's at, or a button, sometimes the button's highlighted so that when you hit the enter key, that button will click. That's the thing that has focus. Or multiple windows on the screen, right? I think it's happened a couple times during examples where I'd hit Control S to say, thinking I was saving the style sheet, but focus was still on the browser. So then it would try to save that. The browser would do the save, not the text editor. So depending on stuff has focus, we can hover over it. Invalid is a common one, but we won't really see that here this semester. Oftentimes we use JavaScript to check if, when users give us information, like filling out a form, if they enter the username, we put a JavaScript script function together to check and make sure it's an email address, right? Because we know an email address will have the @ symbol, and then there's going to be a dot in there somewhere because it has to be a website. So we can check and see if it's actually a web or an email address that they entered, and in that case, change the style rules for things that didn't fit that validation. We won't really see that, but it is pseudo class like this. Along with first child and first of type, obviously there's a last, and a child is the same, something inside of it. So like here, we put those paragraphs inside of a section tag. We'll go back to the shared screen in a moment. So the section tag would be the parent, and then all those paragraphs in there would be the child tags. Last of type. Let's have, along with link, with the, on the link, the anchor tag, We saw active. We also have a pseudo class called link, which that means no visit, no focus, no hover. So if nothing's happening on it, we can do a:link, and that is when it's just sitting on the page and absolutely nothing happened on it, which is what we would normally put just on a. So I think I've always thought the only reason they added that is because if you start adding a whole lot of pseudo classes, that one that just says a is going to look out of place. So they gave us a pseudo class that just refers back to that anchor tag in its generic state. Some more things with the validation. We can set up optional, which that would have, those pseudo classes kind of have to wait till there's a script validating things. But y'all have probably seen that, right? When you're filling out a form, the optional boxes have a light blue background or something. And you can tell from looking at it that which boxes don't have to be filled in. Optional or required. And I just wanted to add those to the list to kind of make sense of these things, help make sense of these pseudo classes, the different things that can happen to the elements we put on a page. We can style them different depending on that. But again, this validation stuff, we won't really see that this semester. That requires some sort of scripting. Typically, validation is done client side, so with JavaScript, but we can validate it server side as well. It just, most people think it makes a lot more sense to check and make sure it's valid before sending it to the server, instead of sending it to the server and waiting for a response. So we usually validate stuff client side, but we won't. That's for a future semester. We saw visited on a link that we already visited. There's a whole lot of them. And then like these, the first child or last child, or first of type, last of type. We also have int. So int child, which would have, so nth dash child, and then in parentheses, we put a number for which int it is. So like the fifth, we'd put a 5 here. Or the third, we'd put a 3 there. So nth child, nth, and there's also nth last child, which just goes the opposite way. Nth dash last dash child. And then we say what int it is. So if we put nth last child and put 3, that's like the third one from the bottom. Whereas nth child is with a 3 would be the third one from the top. And same thing with of type, not just child, like nth type. And we have to say what number it is in parentheses, or nth last type to go the other way. And sort of a long list of these pseudo classes. That's still not an exhaustive list. That's just I ran out of room here. But you can see there's a lot of different ways that we can select things. We're not necessarily restricted to those names. We can select on what's happened. So I added a bunch of paragraphs here, right? Yeah. So like those nth child. So I'll put that here at the bottom. So that second paragraph, I'm gonna hit enter a bunch because I don't like working at the bottom of a screen. So get where I can scroll nicely. So in a section tag, we have a bunch of paragraphs. But maybe we don't want to do it with all of them. So that's where something like that nth type. So nth child. So, well, I was using 3. So this would be third. The third one. And single out just that paragraph. Oops. Background color. Nope, red's probably going to look bad. Yellow. You can see we select just the third paragraph, or just the fifth paragraph. You see how we can really single down the selections? And I believe the book has used it in several homework ones, but while we're talking about selectors, we can also do multiple selections. So, so maybe the second paragraph, and then after a comma, I'll add in another selection. So, comma delimit multiple selections. So in the section paragraphs, the nth child 5. So comma separated, select the second paragraph in a section tag and select the fifth paragraph in a section tag and just change the background color for this. And that gives us more precise, the pseudo classes give us more precise ways. So all of those nth ones there, we have to add a number afterwards. But it gives us so much more control. Yes.
Now, the reason that it only happened in your green area, not your blue area, is that you only had one paragraph in the first one. But if you said section P nth child 1, or said first child, either way, then 1 and 5, then it'll go 1 and 5. But since there's a 1 in the first one, it'll hit.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I wanted to see.
So you do have to be careful for that. So it would probably be better instead of section here if we did this selector. Section name bottom, the name attribute is set to bottom, then do the first child and the fifth child. So we can keep stacking these up. We're not restricted to just a single thing or have class names in classes or IDs in them. But it gives us a lot more power with how we select stuff.
Okay, so if I was going to delineate that, I'd have section, square bracket, name equal bottom, square bracket, space, P, colon, and then whatever I'm doing. Is that what I would do?
Yep. And if it's the first or last, remember we don't need in, or really just for things that aren't the first or last, because we have a specific first child or last child. And
if I play last child and don't specify which section name, if I only have one, the one is the first and the last, right? Let's play that. Because
last child, and I'll change the color of it. We'll be able to see that color to purple.
That's an awful color, but it'll work.
It'll be visible. Yeah, I was just thinking of visible. So yeah, there's only one, so that is the first and the last. First and the last.
Wait a minute. Oh, okay. That made that. Well, I couldn't hardly tell the print. So is that first one actually purple? Yeah, it is purple. Make it something that's a lot different than black. So
red.
Okay, so it did. Okay, so it changed everything except my link, which has its own little thing, to change the color of the print. And since one is only one, it's first, last, and only.
Yes. And if you wanted, if you only wanted that last one, you could do last of type. Because then that's just saying the last paragraph on the very last paragraph.
No, it looks
looks
like it does it by section though. Still
did it by section.
It did it by section. Well, that's why we're playing, huh?
Yeah.
So the only way to delineate the blue area from the green area is to actually give it its name. It looks like its name thing. If we're doing something last or first or first.
Yeah.
Or,
Maybe
or
section last of type. Then all those turn red, or first of type. To turn just that one red and then not affect those. So actually, I guess I didn't need the section tag here. Let's take that off and see if that works the same. Okay, yeah. So the paragraphs were all children of something else. So any reference to a child.
So that would have worked in the, if I had paragraphs in the footer or the header or anywhere, if I didn't specify which tag.
So in
it would
this
take
case,
any paragraph. It would take any paragraph it could find within a section.
Yeah. So that's why I intuitively did that, I guess, because normally there's more stuff on the page, right?
Well, yeah.
It's not just a stripped down version. But it gives, you can kind of see how it gives us lots and lots and lots more power. And there's this, again, I ran out of room on the list. This is a long selection. That's just hopefully to get you started. You can go to Google and put in CSS Pseudo Classes or Pseudo Selectors. Either one of them should return the same results, basically. And oh, it's a little bit further down, but here's that, what I said is the best site. So here's one about CSStricks.com, because these have lengthy, this site has, well, you can see it looks like a blog, right? It looks like a something that would, an article that would show up in a magazine. And this is, these are all written by people that actually work as web developers. So, sometimes they team up, quite often anymore for this site, they team up with professional authors, professional journalists, to make sure it's a really, really good writing, but this is wrote by people in the industry doing it. We can just throw that in Google real quick and see an exhaustive list. It's quite long. There's a lot of different ways we can select things. But does that make sense? Is that enough to get you all started playing around with it during lab time?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
And then we have a couple other pseudo elements. So maybe I needed maybe that's what I did wrong on that page break earlier. So section, was I supposed to put 2 there? After. Nope. This is what didn't seem to work for me afterwards. So on a section tag, put a page break before always. So try to always put a page break before it. Nope, it's not putting a page break in there. So I'm not sure why that's not working. We should be able to select things like after and before, first letter. I'm going to look into why that after one's not working. But things like after, before, maybe first letter. And we can really start to narrow it down. So like the first letter of each section, make that, what's the color that's going to stand out? Red, blue. Maybe that'll stand out. You can see here, the first letter that showed up in this section, kind of small there, but the first letter that showed up is blue.
Is this how they get the drop caps in?
Yes.
By picking some huge pixel amount
Yep.
or a huge point amount? Like if you said font size is 35 point, just for giggles, huge.
Yep.
Okay. And then,
But then it also needs realigned, right? Because drop caps goes down, not up.
right. Well, then there's some sort of alignment for that too, but that's sort of how they get at least part of that. So they get the funny part at the beginning of the paragraph.
Exactly. And kind of adjust how things look. But that'll give you all some stuff to play around with during lab time, right?
Mhm.
So looks like it's about 3:55, so it gives us about an hour. And yeah, so start with a couple of these. I listed them out till I ran out of room. There's quite a few different ways we can select those. But one of the big ones you're going to want to play around with in lab time today is that flex and grid, right? Especially the grid that we saw before the break, because that makes, that gives us a lot of control over how things are laid out on the page. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff from today?
No, but if I wanted to show you that stuff afterwards, do I get off the call and back on, or how does that work?
We'll look at it real quick. Yeah, we can just stay on here for a moment. Usually I end the call because I don't get the video until the call ends. But yes, we might as well just stay on here and do it.
But you can stop recording so the rest of the world doesn't see us fumbling this.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, before I hit stop, does anybody have any questions? Okay, I will double check why that page break thing's not working. I've done that many, many times in my life, so I'm not sure where I'm making a typo there. Probably just one of those being on the spot things. But I'll double check that and we'll go back over that. So I guess that's it for today. As normal, I will be sitting here. I'll keep my video set up, all going until the time our class was supposed to end. So if you have any questions, the text messages and IB Learn inbox messages making noise on my phone, and I will be back on here in a second or two's time. Otherwise, I will see you all on Monday. Everybody have a good weekend.
Okay. So stick around for a second. You want me to